Alright guys, I've had the Supra for about a year now, in fact pretty much exactly a year. And I figured I'd do this video talking about things I like about the car, things I don't like, a few random nuances and weird things that you might not know that might not get mentioned in other videos. And also my future plans, like am I actually going to keep it for much longer? Because that's kind of in debate, up for debate. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but yeah, I'm not sure on that at the moment. So for people that are new to the channel, I'm going to just quickly run through the things that I've done to the car because it's not a completely stock car. It's not massively modified, don't get me wrong, but I want to just at least kind of explain what it is exactly that I'm reviewing because, like I say, it's not completely stock. So we'll go through all the mods that I've done. I'll talk a little bit about each mod and like whether I thought it was worth doing, what I noticed, if anything, from doing it, stuff like that. And then we'll kind of just go through everything I like or don't like about the car. Now, I know everyone these days has got the attention span of a fucking goldfish, so let's kick things off with a little burnout, shall we? Let's at least start interesting, and then the rest of the video is just going to be like half an hour of me talking. So let's at least start with something fun. So as you might have noticed, this isn't the stock exhaust, okay? I made my own decat downpipe for it, which we'll get into in a minute. And it's also been mapped as well now. Again, we'll get onto that. So let's start with just the initial modifications I did. Like I said, so you've got an idea of what the car actually is at the moment. So in the first week, I put the HKS adjustable springs on it. I didn't notice much difference in terms of ride quality or stiffness or body roll or anything like that, to be honest. Although admittedly I'd only had the car for a week, so maybe I wasn't used to the stock car that much, but yeah, I didn't notice a massive difference when I put them on. The main thing that I got them for was to just lower the car, obviously, which it did. There's not really a lot to say about that. They're adjustable, so you can change the ride height. A bit better than the is the HR ones, where they're just a fixed height. HKS ones you can adjust, so that's a bit better. And then I also got some different wheels, converted the wheel bolts to wheel studs. There's videos on all this stuff if you're interested in seeing any of this actually happening. Oh, we're not even in sport mode. What a vagina. There we go. Hopefully you can hear that. In fact, I'm pretty sure this microphone won't pick that up, but there's a lot of pops and bangs, which again we'll get onto in a second. So yeah, I did the springs, wheels, all the normal stuff that people do and go, oh, I've done a build. Yeah, did all the boring stuff. And then shortly after that, I made my own front strut brace, which again, there's a video of that, of me making that. Didn't make much difference to anything, I couldn't tell. I know you could say, well, if you bought a proper one instead of making your own, maybe you'd have noticed a difference, but I don't know, I've had aftermarket strut braces on other cars before, never noticed any difference. So I just made that for the fun of making something really, a bit of welding practice and all that stuff. And yeah, just because no one else is really making stuff for their own Supra at the moment, so I thought it'd be a fun thing to do. And then it pretty much stayed like that, unless I've missed something. I don't think I missed anything. It pretty much stayed like that for like the next 6 or 7 months. I did a couple of track days in it, and then it's sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Then I made my own decat downpipe for it. So that's the cat in the exhaust after the turbo, got rid of that, so it's now just a straight pipe there. Also on the EU cars, I'm in the UK, so on the EU cars we have an extra filter in the exhaust after the cat as well, so you've got the cat and then another filter called an OPF, can't remember what it stands for, similar to a diesel like DPF filter but for petrol. So got rid of that as well. I didn't actually make a video on the decat downpipe, unfortunately. I just kind of made it in one night with a friend. And yeah, then we stuck it on the car. That has by far made the most noticeable difference, that combined with the map. Like, so after you go decat downpipe, you kind of have to get it mapped, at least again on EU cars, because we have this sensor. And that sensor, I know there's going to be like a massive jump cut there, but I just realised how noisy the road was that I was on, so I'll come to a slightly quieter road. That sensor reads the pressure in the exhaust after the cat. Well, it's part of the cat, basically. So that it knows when to clear out that OPF filter that I was talking about. And the problem is, when I made the decat downpipe, I didn't include a port for that sensor because I knew I was going to be getting rid of the OPF anyway. So basically, it would just go into limp mode after I put the decat downpipe on because it wasn't getting a reading from that sensor. So it needed to get mapped anyway, just to fix that. And I wanted to get the extra power out of going decat. So obviously went and got it mapped, got that done by Litchfield, and it makes about 475 horsepower, I think they said. I haven't actually got the dyno sheet off them yet, but yeah, 475 horsepower at the wheels. I'm not too fussed about peak power figures or anything anyway. For me, it's much more about how it drives. So yeah, I'm happy. It's definitely a lot faster, and that's like between the DCAT and the map, they're obviously definitely the most like bang for your buck and the most like recommended mods, I would say, out of everything I've done. Everything else pretty much is just kind of like for aesthetics. This was the only stuff that's actually made a real difference to how it drives. The main thing being the noise, and I guess we'll just get on to now like the kind of shortcomings of it, at least when it was stock. And one of those shortcomings was definitely the noise. Like with the stock exhaust system, you just didn't really hear anything at all, like inside or out. There were a few little pops and bangs when you're outside the car, but inside you couldn't really hear them at all. Like if you really listened out from, you hear a little faint thud. Even with the windows open, you didn't really hear anything. The weird thing is when you just rev it at a standstill, you hear it, but when you're driving, you don't hear anything at all. So yeah, with the decat pipe now, that's made a huge difference to that. And to me, this is kind of, as much of it's like a cliche thing to say, this is kind of how it should have come from the factory. And I know, obviously, they need to put cats in from the factory, but just in terms of exhaust sound and like engine sound and all that, now it's just got, you can hear when you're on throttle, okay, which is what you want. And it's quite a nice noise, to be fair. And you get the pops and the bangs, which I know everyone likes to hate on pop and bang maps, but it's quite fun when it's your own car. It's annoying when other people do it, but when it's your own car and you can just do this. I doubt this microphone picks it up, but that's quite loud and there's quite a lot of pops going on. In fact, let's cut to some clips that I just filmed from outside, because this road is bumpy. I always pick the worst roads when I'm doing videos. We'll cut to some clips from the exterior camera, and I also stuck a GoPro on the rear bumper, and hopefully that'll do some kind of justice to how it sounds, especially in terms of the pops and the bangs and stuff. But it probably won't. In my experience, when you record stuff, it just doesn't do justice to how it sounds in real life. So yeah, we'll play those clips now and you can see what you think. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some sense of what I'm hearing in the car, because like I said, this microphone is not going to pick it up. And yeah, even with the windows up and everything, you still hear it quite a lot now. And where the fuck am I? Because this road is getting worse and worse. I just took a random turn. Now that it's modified, let's talk about like how the car is now. Because these are kind of like standard mods that most people are going to do, is decat, map, wheels, lower it. Do you know what I mean? Like this is like your basic bitch Supra mods checklist. So I think it's worth reviewing this car as it is now rather than the stock car. So first of all, things that I like. I've already mentioned the noise. I like the power as well now. Like it's quite fast now. Before it wasn't slow. It never felt like a slow car, but it was never like, it didn't really put a smile on your face just from flooring the throttle. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now it can do that. Like it's now actually quick. And yeah, that's definitely made a big improvement to the car, just having that extra bit of grunt, extra bit of poke. With the tyres that I've got on now, the Pilot Sport 4S, it does still struggle to break traction. Like you've got to really be turning quite hard and loading the car up and flooring the throttle in a really low gear. So I think I'm going to put the Pilot Super Sport tyres back on because yeah, they were just a little bit less grippy and it just made it a bit more fun to slide around. Which brings me on to the next point, which is the steering, which is something I complained about when I first got the car. not so much like the steering feel or whatever, but just the way the car rotates is just weird, right? There's just something odd about the way this car handles. It's got plenty of grip. Like, if you actually really throw it around, I've done a couple of track days in it, if you really throw it around, it's got plenty of grip, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels really loose in a very odd way. Like, I do a lot of drifting. I've drifted a lot of different cars, like on track days, and then also like actual proper drift days, and I compete in drifting championships and stuff. So I know what a car feels like when it's about to slide, when it's sliding, all that stuff. And this car always feels like it's about to slide at any second, and then it just doesn't. Like, on track, you like get it to that point where the whole thing feels like it's starting to rotate, and you give it more throttle, and nothing happens. It just grips raised, or you turn in harder, and it just keeps turning in more and more, even though it felt like it was like on the edge of grip at the start. So that's a really weird like sensation, and it's like just really sensitive to getting on and off throttle. And again, I know how that stuff normally feels. It's not just me being a retard and being like, oh, I fucking lifted off the throttle at like 100 mile an hour while I was turning really hard and it wanted to spin out. It's not stuff like that, right? It's just literally when you get on and off throttle, even with the car not loaded up that much, the whole thing just sort of squirms around a bit. It's very hard to explain and put into words, so I'm probably doing a terrible job. But you just have to trust me, it's a bit weird in that regard. It doesn't ruin the car. It's not like, oh, it's undrivable or anything like that. But I think especially for people who haven't done any drifting and aren't used to a car feeling like that, I think it would be really unnerving. Like, I find it a bit unnerving sometimes. So, yeah, I think for the average person, it would feel a bit weird. I'm trying to work out where the hell I am, because at least we're on a main road now. We will be in a second. So yeah, that's one weird thing, definitely, that I'm not a fan of, really. But at least it does that. It also launches your water bottle miles away, apparently. Oh, I know where we are now. Right, okay, cool. So yeah, that's one weird thing. Another weird thing I've just been reminded of is that there's no separation between the cabin and the boot. So I've got that tripod back there, and it's just flying around. I can hear it rattling around. Anything you put in the boot, you can hear all the time, just rattling around. And obviously, if you had to slam on the brakes, a lot of that stuff's probably going to fly forward into the cabin, which seems like some kind of safety issue to me, but I guess it's fine. Obviously, there's like a little ridge there, so it's not completely open, but yeah, it just seems really odd to me. I've never had a car that has had a gap like that there, and I've had like 15 different cars or something, and I've never had one that has that. So I think it's a bit weird, but other people might think that's normal. I don't know. Let's see if we can do another. Like, that's foot to the floor in second, and like the whole time I didn't lift off there at all, foot to the floor, and it slides a little bit and then it just grips up again. Like, it's a little bit too grippy for my liking, and this seatbelt keeps trying to strangle me when I do that. But yeah, it's a little bit too grippy for my liking. Hopefully going back to those other tyres will make it a bit more fun again. But yeah, in terms of overall fun factor, I'm trying to like keep this rolling on tangents that I keep going on. Overall fun factor, it's decent fun, but there's one thing that just lets it down a lot, and that's the automatic gearbox. And I should point out that I knew that was going to be a problem for me when I bought it. Okay, I pre-ordered the car, and I thought, I don't really want an auto gearbox. So I'm probably going to cancel this pre-order, but whatever, I'll go and just test drive it anyway, just something to do, isn't it? And then I kind of got sucked into like, shiny new toy, it does look nice. And that's one thing I do really like about it, is the look of it. It's obviously subjective, you'll have all made your mind up already whether you like the look of them. I love the look of them, and that's one thing that really sold me on it. And yeah, I drove it and I was like, you know what, I want it. Because at the time I had a Cayman, just the 2.7 litre 981, and even though that was manual and great fun to drive, there's just like no aftermarket mod support at all for them. And this, being a Toyota, even though it's BMW, technically being a Toyota, there's a lot more aftermarket mod support for this already in the first year than there has been in like 5 years for that Cayman or whatever. So that was one reason for going for this as well. Having said that, most of the mods now, like on top of what I've already done, if I want to go any further, you generally have to start looking at like meth injection and like E85 fuel and stuff like that, which over here, E85 is hard to get hold of, and I don't really fancy meth injection just because it's like an extra thing that you've got to keep topped up and keep buying and keep, I mean, it's not the cost, it's just the hassle of having to keep buying it and topping it up, and I feel like I'd get through it really quickly and it would just be annoying. So yeah, I don't really want to go that route. You'd probably also have to upgrade the high pressure fuel pump and stuff like that. Like, it's just, I don't know, at that point it just gets a bit of a pain in the arse. I think I'm probably not going to do much more to it. And that brings me on to like future plans. I am thinking of selling it already. Like, I've had it a year, which might not sound like a lot for most people, but I've had cars before where I've literally owned them for like 3 weeks because I've bought them, I spent a lot of money on them, and after 3 weeks I'm like, this just isn't for me. Like, I'm just going to sell it. I'll take the hit, I'll lose the money, whatever. So the fact that I've kept this for a year does say something about this car. I know most people see a year as not very long at all, but for me that's not that bad. The R8 that I had for 3 years, and that's like the longest I've ever had any car, and halfway through that I got bored and supercharged it. So yeah, that was kind of like 2 cars essentially, because once it was supercharged that was mental. And that, like I was saying about this, kind of, it can put a smile on your face just from the throttle now. It's not at that level. Like, the R8 was 700 horsepower, and like that was just, it just blew you away every time you floored the throttle. This isn't like that, but it's enough to be fun, just from the throttle, which is good because, like I said, the manual, the auto the transmission, can't talk now apparently, the auto transmission makes it pretty dull to drive. Like I said, I knew that would be a problem for me, but it's more of a problem than I thought. I thought once it got decats and got mapped and everything, that would kind of make up for that lack of involvement, but I don't think it does for me. I think for some people it will. I know, like in America, all they care about is drag race times, from what I've seen on the Supra owners group. So like, yeah, of course they don't care about manual transmission, but for me, it just makes such a difference. I drove like a 2007 Ford Fiesta the other day. It was a courtesy car. It was a piece of shit. It was like, it had no power whatsoever, but it was manual, and my daily driver isn't manual, and this isn't manual. And just being in a manual car, it was just so much fun again. Like, the only time I drive a manual normally is the drift car, which is on tracks. That's very different. Whereas just driving just on a normal road at normal speeds, so much more fun and so much more involving when you've got a manual. And even just stupid little things like, if you want to rev your engine, you can't do that in this. I've got to stop, put my foot on the brake, put it into drive mode, put it into neutral, rev it, and then reverse all of that to actually get going again. Like, it's just stupid little things like that. Not being able to clutch kick, like if you want to do a slide. I know most people aren't going to be wanting to clutch kick a car like this, but yeah, it's just that extra little bit of control that you get with a manual that I just really like. Like, if you want to drift this, when I say drift, I mean do a little power slide out of a junction or something, you have to floor the throttle and just cross your fingers and hope for the best, because you've got no control over it. With a manual, you can do that and then just give it a little clutch kick, and you know it'll break traction at the exact moment that you clutch kick it. Again, not a problem for most people, I know. This is not really great, like, buyer's consumer advice or anything, but I'm just telling you how I feel. I'm just telling you the things that bug me about an auto. And again, just like everyday driving, even if you're just doing the speed limit, just driving down a normal road, you can just mess about, rev matching and getting heel and toe right on every downshift and trying to do like really quick, smooth gear changes on the way up. It just adds so much more to driving compared to now. What do? I just turn the steering wheel. That's it. That's all I do. And press the pedal. Like, it's so dull in comparison. And on the subject of like dullness, like I said, the car overall is still fun to drive-ish because of the extra power and stuff now and the noise. But it's definitely not that great for like sense of speed. It's nowhere near as bad as the M4 that I had. The M4 that I had for like 2 years, that was like you had to do 100 mile an hour to feel like you were doing anything in that thing. This isn't that bad, but it still definitely suffers a little bit from the whole like lack of sense of speed thing. We're doing 58 now, and I feel like we're doing about 50. Like, it's not that bad. You you probably add like 10 mile an hour on, or take 10 mile an hour off, sorry, for what you actually feel like. So it's not the end of the world. And I think in that regard, and in pretty much every regard actually, this sits very much in the middle of the Cayman and the M4. So it's got some bad things from the M4 and it's got some good things from the Cayman, and it's kind of just a mix of all those. But like, it is fast. It is really fast now. It still doesn't like throw you back in your seat like that hard, but it's definitely fast. Like I say, fast enough to be fun now. So, yeah, I'll try and think of some other random little things, because obviously I've just basically shat on it so far, saying that it needs a manual transmission, which is very true, but... Oh, that was sketchy. She bites a bit when she comes back. That's the thing with like having wide grippy tyres on. If you don't like really smoothly get off the throttle, it snaps back like really violently. Oh, let's talk about like the interior and like technology and that side of things, because I think that is worth mentioning. Overall, the interior is really nice. It's very BMW. Obviously, you'll have all seen it before. Very BMW, but it's nice. It's functional. It's good. It's got all the technology you would want, really. It's got heads-up display. It's got adaptive cruise control, which is way more useful than I thought it would be. It's got heated seats, you got Bluetooth audio, all that stuff, sat-nav, like all the normal stuff you'd expect these days. It's also got some cameras in it that detect the speed limit signs, which is quite good, so you can always see the current speed limit, which is a nice little thing to have. It's got a reversing camera. Oh, there is one random little issue that I've just remembered that I wanted to mention, that a lot of people mention, and that is when you have the windows down, a lot of people complain about this kind of like buffeting effect, you know what I mean, like when the wind's like sort of pulsing in your ear and it sounds horrible. I haven't noticed it that much. I've noticed it sometimes, but not that much, to be honest. Not to the extent that people complain about it. People make out like it ruins the whole car. Maybe that's because I live in England and like now it's kind of drizzling in grey, so I don't really want to open the windows much, but yeah, it's like a real specific speed and a real specific situation with the windows where like if you have this one like half open and that one fully open or something like that, that's when it happens for me. Not really worth mentioning, I didn't think, but the amount of people that have complained about it, I figured I'll bring it up. And yeah, you can get like an aftermarket thing that sticks on the window there or something, sticks near the wing mirror, and that fixes it. So again, it's not the end of the world. It's weird that Toyota kind of let it out of the factory like that though. Like you'd think they must have noticed that. Same with the sort of twitchy, wobbly steering thing, like where it just feels like it's about to rotate all the time. Personally, I think they did that intentionally because, for one, I don't think they could have not noticed that and just gone like, oh well, shit, that's not good, but we'll just let it out anyway. So I think they've done it intentionally because also it does make the car feel more playful. Like I say, if you haven't done any drifting, you'd probably feel like the car is actually sliding a bit there, but it's not. One other thing I've just noticed with the windows down, with the decap pipe, you hear the turbo like spool up. Well, you hear the turbine whistle, basically. I really doubt it's going to come across on this microphone at all, but we'll see. You hear that at all? You hear anything? I doubt it. But yeah, you hear like a faint sort of whistle now as the turbine's spinning up and spinning down, which is kind of nice, just an extra little thing. Like I say, this car just needs that extra little bit of drama and like interest, because stock is just a bit all around kind of just dull. Like it's not bad, it's just not good either. And I think that sums up how I feel about it. Is I like it, but I don't like love it. You know what I mean? And I want to love it because I love how it looks, and I love the interior, and I love the fact it's rear-wheel drive and the amount of power it's got and all that stuff, and the noise now as well. But there's just something missing, and I really think it's just the gearbox. Like I would just love that extra little something to do, that extra little challenge every time you change gear, and just the extra control that you get from it. So I think I'm probably going to trade it in soon for something else. I don't know what. I'm thinking Cayman GT4, but I don't know. I haven't decided. I'm sure the comments now will just be filled with suggestions of what I should buy. I don't regret buying this, that's the thing. I'm not like, oh, I wish I'd never bought it. I've enjoyed having it. And that's one other thing to mention, is that because it's quite new, and I've literally only ever seen one other one on the road in like the last year, because it's new and it's in that nice price range where it gets a bit of attention, like people are interested in it and people like it, but they don't go, oh look at this douche in his Ferrari or whatever, do you know what I mean? I don't think I'm going to do any other mods to it because, like I say, I'm probably going to sell it soon. I haven't made my mind up, like I might not sell it, but it's kind of like in my gut, I'm like, yeah, I think I don't know, had enough of it. But then like today I've just been driving around, blasting it around and listening to all the pops and the bangs and the noise and doing a few burnouts and stuff, and it's been fun. But I could do all that in another car and have a manual and be having even more fun. So that's kind of where I am with it. So I think that's probably it for this video. I'm sure there's something, I always like finish these really long videos and I go, oh, I didn't even mention this, I didn't mention that. But yeah, I think that's it. Like how it looks, like how it sounds, like how it drives in terms of acceleration and everything now. The brakes are decent, by the way. Like, people complain about them on track days, but I didn't have any problems. I did change the brake fluid though. One of the technology thing that's got that's good is it's got a wireless charging tray for your phone. So you just put your phone in there and it charges. But one bad side of that is that it's got like a rubber floor, like a rubber mat, so that your phone doesn't slip out of there. But it's not sticky enough, because if you literally just floor it once in pretty much any gear, your phone slides out of it. So that's not ideal. Oh, and another random thing is the start-stop, like that most cars have these days, is good, but when the car in front of you moves even a tiny bit, it starts again, thinking that you're about to set off, which makes sense in theory. Problem is, in reality, a lot of the time when you're just sat in traffic, the car in front will just inch forward a bit for no reason when the traffic light hasn't changed or whatever, and then your car starts up and then it just stays on, and you're just sat there not moving still. So that's a bit of a design flaw, I'd say. It'd be good if you could just turn that feature off, but I don't think you can. You can turn the whole start-stop off, but then obviously that's even worse than if it just stopped for a little bit. So, yeah, I can't think of any other stuff, really. Like I said, I'm sure I'll remember something after this, but if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. Well done if you made it this far through the video, because according to this GoPro, I've been recording for like 39 minutes. I'll try and edit some of that out. Hopefully it won't be quite that long for you guys, but it's going to be a long video. Yeah, the other thing I've not mentioned, I guess, is like practicality and like day-to-day stuff, and like MPG and all that. I have no idea what MPG it gets, because who gives a shit about miles per gallon in a sports car. Yeah, it doesn't even tell me on the dash because I turned that option off. You can change which options it shows you. I turned that off because I thought I don't need to see that. So, yeah, it does feel like it's got a fairly small fuel tank though, I will say that. Like, when you fill up, I'm sure it's in like 40 or 50 litres or something. It's not a massive amount. I'm trying to think what else people might want to know if they're considering buying one of these. I don't know. I think it all depends on whether you can stomach an automatic transmission. That is by far the biggest weakness of this car. And like I say, it does feel a little bit like you do lose a bit of a sense of speed compared to something like a Cayman or even that Fiesta that I drove. But not to the extent that you do in a lot of the modern BMW cars. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. I'm just like looking around like, what have I forgotten? But I think we'll have to end it here because it's been long enough. So yeah, let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll see you in the next video, which will probably be the next round of BDC, more drifting stuff. Yeah, unless there's anything else coming up, I don't think there is. So yeah, be more drifting, so I'll see you there. Shall we kick things off with a burnout? Because I know all you little fucks these days have got the attention span of a goldfish, and this is just going to be a long video of me talking, so I'll eat this grape, and we'll go do a burnout. Can you hear that? This is the weirdest video I've ever done. Oh, I think I got a bit of stalk with that one. That's not what you want.